Here's the scenario. You're injured in a collision and your insurance company is denying your claim. It happens far too often. If it happens to you, call me, Brian Goldfinger of Goldfinger Personal Injury Law. My team and I work for people just like you. We don't accept cases on behalf of insurance companies, so you and your family can make sure that you're in good hands. Visit goldfingerlaw.com and get us working for you.
Get Goldfinger today.
You know what I want? I want a top sand.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. I'm Earl Samson Folk, and you're joining me after the Raptors' 122-104 win against the New Orleans Pelicans, who have a punchy Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a very distinguished Jrue Holiday, and a Brandon Ingram that has taken a step, and sans Zion Williamson, so the Raptors didn't get to face him this year, which is a bit of a tragedy, considering the Raptors were slated to face him to start off the year with the defending champs versus, the exciting Pelicans with Zion Williamson until he had that 12 of 13 game against the Bulls, and now we don't get to see him face the Raptors this year, which is a bit of a shame because so many lore makers thought that the first charge that Zion Williamson would get would be on Kyle Lowry, because Kyle Lowry is a fearless warrior on the basketball court. But yeah, 122-104, the Raptors, they outpaced the Pelicans in this one. It was not an easy game, and I should clarify before things get into it, the injury that Serge Ibaka sustained was a severe ankle sprain. That's via Nick Nurse. With Lowry's injury, and this is via Eric Kareen of The Athletic, Kyle Lowry has a small fracture in his left thumb, not related to previous injury. So on both fronts, that's neither is good at all. Those both seem like Ibaka is going to be out against the Lakers, and their massive front court is going to try and squeeze the Raptors into a small box, and they might be able to, especially Ibaka has been not the best big man on the Raptors team, because Siakam counts as a big man, but he's definitely been the better of the two of Gasol and Ibaka. Ibaka has been the best bench big in the league so far, so losing him is definitely not great. Lowry hurt it swiping at a ball after Favors' offensive rebound. Thought it was his nail because it was black and blue immediately, but he fractured his thumb. So not great, but the Raptors, they did start this game out great. It was honestly a joy to watch, and for the most part, because once again, we start out with a guy named OG Anunoby who has completely maxed out his role with the Raptors, and that's not me saying he should have a different role. It's just I'd like to acknowledge the near perfection that OG has been performing in his role, honestly. And so the game started out, OG was making great baseline cuts. He was hitting the threes available to him. He finished 5 of 7 from downtown tonight. He had 21 overall, but in the first quarter alone, he was getting out in transition, filling the lane, being a dangerous option so that Siakam had a better lane to the rim himself, and those two basically busted the game open. Of course, at the front end of transition, you had Gasol and Lowry both making outlet passes to get things going, and the Pelicans, just as it was working out, lots of long rebounds and pretty sloppy transition defense. The Pelicans aren't known for being a defensive team. This year, it's pretty much been, even though they do have Jrue Holiday, who is a fantastic defender, and Lonzo Ball, who's also good, it's just they haven't put it together on that end. But it was really something to watch. The Pelicans got back in it at the end of the first quarter, largely on the back of offensive rebounds and more possessions. So that reared its ugly head for a little bit, and that was definitely something that was a little bit concerning, but the Raptors did get back out of that hole, that slump. The first quarter ended at 30-30, and to start the second quarter, the Raptors brought it back to 30-30. I believe it was 27-30, and the Raptors really, on the back of Serge Ibaka's wonderful backstopping of the defense, they started out it ended up being a 14-0 run from the end of the first quarter into the second quarter. But that was really, the game was broken open then, and then for the rest of the game from that point on, the Raptors pretty well maintained around a 15 to 20 point lead, which is sizable, which is good. And that meant that some players didn't have to play as heavy minutes, like OG Anunoby in this one only played 30 minutes. He's usually playing around 36, 37 in every game. So 30 minutes, he had 6-7 minutes off. That's a nice night for him. But the defense of Ibaka really did set the pace. It set the tone for the second quarter. And also the transition started to pick back up again. And Norm's first insertion in the game in the first quarter didn't result in much. It was a little bit troubling for him. But the pace of the game picking up in the second quarter, him sharing minutes with Kyle, getting to run out, he was getting to step into three-pointers, he was getting to attack the rim without help side lurking in a half-court defense. It was really good for his game. He ended up playing really well, and it started in that second quarter, and he helped to break the game open. He was hitting his shots, whether it was at the rim, beyond the three-point line. Chris Boucher also got in on it. I've talked about on this podcast quite a few times that his game really excels in an up-and-down style, and he had a huge put-back dunk. He scared, I think it was Frank Jackson, into missing a breakaway layup. Just Chris Boucher's length is something to behold, and especially with the energy he puts into chasing guys down. He puts God's fear into some people, and he did that. And he doesn't have the bulk to finish inside, and that was kind of how this whole game resulted with him, that he didn't have the bulk to finish inside against, the bigger guys, whether it was Derek Favors or Jahlil Okafor, whoever was in for the Pelicans at the time. When Boucher was trying to go up in a contested paint area, it didn't work out well for him. I think he was 1 of 6 for the night, but that's not super worrying. Everyone knew that's not going to be his game. He was rangy on defense. He wasn't put in a whole bunch of pick and roll scenarios, which is pretty much what I'm waiting to see this year. I want to see him put in a lot of pick and roll scenarios defensively, because I think that's the step he needs to take. If he can really find the pacing of how guys are going to run the pick and roll against him, and he can read it right, then his length and his tenacity can be really, really great defensively. Right now, he's a little bit off the way he defends. There's gaps and lanes that he gives up when he defends the pick and roll. That wasn't in this game, I should say. He didn't really have many opportunities, but just for the future and for how I'd like to see him grow. Drew really pushed the pace in the second quarter. He got things going for himself. Drew Holiday, that is. A lone bright spot in the second quarter, basically, for the Pelicans. But the Raptors, they really broke it open going into halftime. But Serge, he rolled his ankle landing on OG's heel, and that ended up being the injury that I talked about at the start of this podcast. And Kyle, as I said earlier, he swiped at a Derek Favors defensive rebound and ended up fracturing his thumb. So a tough ending to the half. And luckily for the Raptors, they had just already blown the game out. To that point, they were up by like 25 at one point while Lowry was healthy and Ibaka was healthy. They were running away with it, and it was really a sight to behold. The Raptors were playing really well, so it was really disappointing that both Lowry and Ibaka got injured towards the end of the second quarter and are now out for the foreseeable future, that's tough. And yeah, a bitter end to a really great quarter for the Raptors. Third quarter, Nurse was rolling out some of the bench guys. We saw more from Norman Powell. Matt Thomas got some minutes. Terrence Davis as well as an initiator even. And obviously the best of those minutes, and Chris Boucher as well. The best of those minutes went to Norman Powell, Matt Thomas. Matt Thomas because he came off a pin down, cashed in a triple, and it was pretty heavily contested, but he went straight up, had a quick release, and looked 100% the three-point specialist that he is. And it was really nice. There wasn't really a standout defensively from him in this one, but that's not what he's here for. That's not what he's supposed to do with the Raptors. He's supposed to come in, gun from downtown, and that's what he did. Norman Powell kept doing what he was doing. He had some decent cuts from the weak side, working off of Pascal Siakam. Lots of things to like as far as that. The Raptors' defense really turned up, and there was a bit of malaise, it seemed, from the Pelicans as well. Like, at some point in that quarter, the Raptors had forced the Pelicans into more turnovers than assists. It was 16 turnovers to 15 assists on the game at some point in that quarter. And there was a little bit of a worry just with how Fred VanVleet was running the offense, still working very hard to get blocked at the rim, to miss shots at the rim, just not really great in his downhill decision-making. He did hit a couple pocket passes earlier on in the game and some in the fourth quarter, but when Ibaka was out of the game and it's Gasol on the roll, those don't end up amounting to much anyway. And I thought VanVleet was at his best when he was shooting above the break threes, of course, because he's a terrific shooter, and when he was managing the offense above the break, and when he was gnashing the pick and roll. So there's still work to be done as far as him being a lead guard, because the lead did start kind of shrinking away, and that was a large credit to Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I thought did a fantastic job running the pick and roll on the other side of things. And Brandon Ingram, credit to him, even though he was being defended by OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam, he kept putting the pressure on. He did a great job getting to the rim. He had a lot of tough shots tonight, and that's a credit, once again, to Pascal Siakam, to OG Anunoby. And Ingram's length at the rim is really something to behold as well. I thought he did a great job putting shots up. I liked his shot selection, to be honest, for the most part. He wasn't hanging around in the mid-range too much, and when he was pretty successful from there. And he was a constant for the Pelicans in this one. Drew had some moments, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, as I mentioned, was really effective in the pick and roll for a 5-6 minute stint, had a lot of assists, was really creating good looks for his teammates. Some of them didn't go down, and I thought, man, he was really, really electric when creating. He was bouncy and shifty. It seemed like the point of attack for the Raptors defense didn't know how to deal with him, and I think that the Pelicans got it to 11 while they were working in the Nickeil Alexander-Walker pick and roll. On the back of that, that's as close as it got. Siakam kind of came back into the game and shut the door on that. Ended up with 44 points, tying a career high. OG ended up with 21 points, tying a career high. And those two really brought it home. We saw Malcolm Miller for 5 minutes, but he didn't really do anything besides be a swing pass guy. I thought maybe he should have taken a shot. He's a good shooter. I want to see him put shots up. Stanley Johnson got a minute. Things like that happened, but it's pretty uneventful. Siakam and OG shut the door on them. Fred VanVleet had an up and down game, but I thought he performed decently enough in the fourth quarter, so there was no problem with that. And the Raptors, with Kyle Lowry out and Serge Ibaka out in the second half, it is really just young guys plus Gasol bring us home. And I think they did a commendable job of doing that. There's no problems with how they handled that game. Yes, a couple dry runs, couple funky stretches, in the second half, but that's not too much of a concern. There was a lot of times that it seems like the Raptors are punching above their weight. And in actuality, at this point in time, it seems like just Siakam and OG are that good. They are no longer punching above their weight. They just weigh more in the league. They are of sincere status. They've both been fantastic. And it was a fun game to watch. If it wasn't dampened by injuries, it would have been much more fun. And to see two of the most important players for the Raptors go down is something else. And it's never fun, especially with a team that's kind of short on depth like the Raptors are. So we're really going to see. We're going to see what happens with this team. It should be interesting how they deal with that stuff going forward. We're going to see a lot of Terrence Davis II. We're going to see a lot of Chris Boucher, and against good teams. So this West Coast road trip looks like the Raptors, it's really going to be a test of their mettle. And the next game is the Lakers. So I guess we'll see. The Reggie Evans Award goes to Pascal Siakam. I think he's got his finger on the pulse of the game for the most part. He's really, really good at sitting back when the Raptors are stretching their legs with other guys, and really good at taking control of the offense when the Raptors need it. And that is a quality that a lot of really good players never get. Like Paul George is a guy who's a fantastic basketball player, but has never had that quality. He's never had the feel for the game of knowing when to push, when to pull back, and let other guys do it. It seems like Siakam already has that, and that is rare, and especially with how well he's doing other things, from the free throw line, from the three-point line, at the rim, it's really been something. So Reggie Evans Award goes to him. The Mitchell Robinson Award goes to OG Anunoby's heel, which just so happened to be in the wrong place and caused a sprained ankle from our lovable big man from the Republic of Congo, Serge Ibaka. And that's not actually saying it's OG Anunoby's fault. It's acting like his heel is something outside of him and that it is at fault, but of no fault of OG's own. So don't take me seriously on that, but the Mitchell Robinson Award is definitely going to the thing that caused Serge's injury, because Kyle is, even though he got injured swiping at the ball after a defensive rebound, he is not going to stop doing that once he gets back. There's no way that will ever be a part of his game that leaves. He has to do it. He was the one who caused his own demise a little bit. And, but Ibaka is just a stroke of horrible luck. And there's no way around that sometimes. And that's just unfortunate. The top QR comment from OG.Omi. Oh, this will be ire-inspiring for some. He spelled out Siakam. Kind of, you know how you do like SpongeBob when you're spelling out friend is for you and me. Fun, all that kind of stuff. However it worked out. And so it goes S, superstar, I, infinite, A, ace, K, kick-ass, A, astonishing, M, Mother Teresa, Siakam. So obviously still having fun with it. I think Siakam is exactly the player we should be celebrating. OG as well. And what do you do? Siakam has been so fun to cheer for. And after so many years of feeling like the Raptors were just searching for franchise players and were in between guys, the fact that Kawhi Leonard left and was immediately the huge hole that, like the chasm that was left, is Siakam is doing his best to fill that, and pretty effectively to this point. So lots to like. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, whether you're getting into this in the morning or at night. Regardless, have a blessed day and goodbye.